She was just a quiet hotel cleaner, until she picked up the phone and spoke perfect German in front of a billionaire. What happened next shattered every assumption, opening the door to a life she had only dreamed of. Welcome to Tales by Ezra. Let's uncover what really happened. The grand lobby of the Hotel Excelsior was a symphony of hushed efficiency and polished marble, a world away from the cramped two-bedroom apartment Elena called home. Sunlight, fractured by the enormous crystal chandelier, danced across the gleaming floors she had just meticulously mopped. For 5 years, her days had been measured in the scent of cleaning solutions and the rhythmic swish of her cart's wheels, a stark contrast to the vibrant, multilingual world that lived in her head. Elena moved through the opulent corridors like a phantom, her presence registered by few, her story known by none. She was the quiet woman who emptied wastebaskets overflowing with discarded dreams and polished surfaces reflecting the ambitions of others. Most guests, wrapped in their own urgent narratives, barely registered her, a figure in a muted gray uniform, blending into the expensive wallpaper. Yet, within that unassuming frame resided a mind teeming with languages, a passion kindled in a childhood spent poring over borrowed library books in a small, forgotten town in Eastern Europe, a place she had left behind with a suitcase full of hope and a heart heavy with responsibility. German, French, Spanish, a smattering of Italian. They were her secret companions, whispered to herself as she scrubbed toilets or folded fresh linens, each syllable a tiny rebellion against the monotony of her routine. Her current reality was a consequence of circumstance, a daughter's duty to an ailing mother whose medical bills consumed every spare cent, leaving no room for the academic aspirations she once harbored. The Excelsior, with its steady, if modest, paycheck, was a lifeline, not a destination. Among the Excelsior's most esteemed, and often most demanding, patrons was Mr. Alastair Harrison, a man whose name was synonymous with shrewd international investments and an almost mythical level of discernment. Harrison was a figure of quiet power. His arrivals were unannounced by fanfare, but marked by an almost imperceptible tightening of the hotel staff's collective posture. He rarely spoke more than necessary, his observations keen, his expectations absolute. He favored the penthouse suite, its panoramic city views a fitting backdrop for a man who seemed to survey the world from a considerable height. He noticed details others missed, the slight misalignment of a picture frame, the precise temperature of his morning tea. Elena knew his preferences by heart. The extra pillow, the specific brand of sparkling water, the blinds angled just so to greet the dawn. She performed these tasks with her usual quiet diligence, never expecting acknowledgement, yet always striving for an unseen perfection. Mr. Harrison, for his part, had likely never consciously registered her beyond the efficient execution of her duties. She was, to him, part of the seamless machinery that made his stays comfortable. He wouldn't have known about the dog-eared copy of Goethe she kept hidden in her locker, nor the hours she spent listening to German news podcasts on her long bus rides home, her mind a world away from the scent of industrial-strength disinfectant. He wouldn't have known that the woman polishing his mahogany desk could effortlessly deconstruct a complex German sentence or appreciate the nuanced wordplay of its poets. That particular Tuesday morning, the lobby hummed with a frantic energy. A delegation of German executives, crucial to a deal Harrison was orchestrating, was due to arrive, and a last-minute logistical snag had thrown the reception staff into a polite but palpable panic. The usual multilingual concierge was unexpectedly ill, and his replacement, flustered and struggling with a thick accent, was making little headway with an urgent, crackling phone call from Berlin. The hotel manager, Mr. Albright, paced nervously, his brow furrowed. Elena was nearby, replenishing brochures at a stand, her presence as unobtrusive as ever. She overheard snippets of the strained conversation, misverstandness, dringent flood details. Her stomach gave a familiar lurch. This was the kind of situation where she usually made herself smaller, more invisible. To step forward was to invite attention, to break the unspoken rules of her role. Yet, The urgency in the disembodied German voice on the phone resonated with her, a clear signal of distress that transcended her ingrained caution. The junior concierge was now stammering apologies, his face flushed. Elena took a small, almost involuntary step forward. Her heart hammered against her ribs. Mr. Harrison himself had just descended in the glass elevator, his gaze sweeping the chaotic scene at the front desk with an expression of mild, controlled displeasure. This was his deal, his meticulously planned schedule at risk. The stakes were visibly high. For a breath, Elena hesitated. Then, the years of silent study, the ingrained love for the language, and a simple, human desire to help, pushed through her reserve. She approached the desk. "Excuse me, Mr. Albright," she said, her voice low but clear. "Perhaps I can assist? I speak German." Albright, mid-fret, barely glanced at her. "Not now. Elena, we're in a bit of a crisis." But the junior concierge, desperate, looked up with a flicker of hope. "You do?" Elena nodded, her gaze steady. Before Albright could object further, she reached for the receiver the young man gratefully offered. "Guten Tag, hier ist das Hotel Excelsior. Wie kann ich Ihnen helfen, Said?" Her voice transforming. The nervousness vanished, replaced by a calm, articulate professionalism. Her accent was flawless, her diction precise. The tension in the lobby seemed to momentarily pause. Even Mr. Albright stopped pacing. From across the lobby, Mr. Harrison, who had been observing the unfolding minor drama with a frown, stilled. His head tilted slightly, his sharp eyes, which missed nothing, fixed on the unassuming cleaner, now handling a complex international communication with an ease that belied her uniform. Elena listened intently, nodding, asking clarifying questions in fluent German, her tone reassuring and competent. She scribbled notes rapidly on a pad, her expression focused. Within minutes, the issue, a misunderstanding about airport transfer arrangements and meeting schedules, was clarified. She confirmed details, offered solutions, and concluded the call with a polite, "Auf Wiederhören und ein gut Reis." As she hung up, a collective sigh of relief seemed to emanate from the reception staff. Mr. Albright looked at her, a mixture of astonishment and gratitude dawning on his face. "Elena, I had no idea." Elena offered a small, almost shy smile. "I'm glad I could help, sir." She then quietly retreated, picking up her cleaning caddy, intending to melt back into the background as she always did. But as she turned, her eyes met Mr. Harrison's for a fleeting second. His expression was unreadable, a mask of cool neutrality, but his gaze lingered on her a moment longer than it ever had before. He said nothing, merely gave a curt nod to Mr. Albright as the newly arrived German executives, now smoothly managed, were escorted towards the elevators. Elena went back to her duties, her heart still beating a little faster than usual. Had he really noticed? Or was it just another fleeting observation for a man whose world was filled with far more important details? The thought, a tiny, persistent ember, stayed with her for the rest of the day, a small disruption in the well-ordered quiet of her inner life. The incident, though quickly smoothed over in the hotel's operational flow, had left an undeniable ripple, particularly in the mind of Alistair Harrison. He was not a man given to overt displays of curiosity, but the image of the hotel cleaner, her sudden, striking transformation from a peripheral figure into a confident, articulate communicator in perfect German, had lodged itself in his thoughts. It was an anomaly, and Harrison had built his empire on understanding anomalies. Later that afternoon, during a lull in his schedule, he summoned Mr. Albright to his suite. "The woman at the reception this morning," Harrison began, without preamble, as he stared out at the cityscape. "Elena, I believe you called her." "From housekeeping." Mr. Albright, ever eager to please, nodded. "Yes, Mr. Harrison. Elena Petrova, a very reliable employee. Been with us for several years. Quiet, keeps to herself mostly." Harrison turned, his gaze direct. "Does she often handle guest communications in foreign languages?" Albright shifted slightly. "No, sir, not to my knowledge. Today was quite a surprise. A very welcome one, of course." She truly saved the situation. Her German was impeccable, Harrison stated, a hint of something more than casual observation in his tone. Is that her native language? I believe she's from somewhere in Eastern Europe, sir. Her English is excellent, though perhaps with a slight accent if one listens closely. But German? That was new to all of us. Harrison considered this. Find out what you can about her. Discreetly. I'm interested in her background. Albright, though slightly perplexed by the unusual request concerning a member of the cleaning staff, readily agreed. Of course, Mr. Harrison. Right away. Meanwhile, Elena continued her shift, her mind replaying the morning's events. The brief eye contact with Mr. Harrison had unsettled her more than the actual phone call. It wasn't fear, exactly, but a heightened awareness, a feeling of having been unexpectedly illuminated under a spotlight she usually avoided. She worried, fleetingly, if she had overstepped, if her intervention would bring unwelcome scrutiny. Her life was carefully constructed, a delicate balance of work, care for her mother, and the quiet solace of her books. Disruptions were rarely welcome. That evening, on the bus home, the usual German news podcast felt different. It wasn't just an intellectual exercise anymore. It was a skill that had, however briefly, intersected with a world beyond her routine. A tiny, almost forgotten spark of ambition flickered within her. What if? The question was a dangerous one she had learned to suppress. Dreams were a luxury her life couldn't afford. Her mother's medication was due for a refill, and the rent was always looming. Yet, the memory of Mr. Harrison's focused gaze, the stillness in the lobby as she spoke, echoed. It was the first time in years that someone in a position of power had seen a glimpse of the person she was beyond the uniform. The next day, Elena noticed Mr. Harrison observing her more than usual. It wasn't overt, but she felt his eyes on her as she polished a brass railing in the mezzanine lounge while he was having a quiet coffee, or when she was replacing towels in the executive gym and he passed by. He said nothing, offered no indication of his thoughts, but his attention was a silent pressure, both unnerving and strangely validating. Mr. Albright, true to his word, had made his inquiries. He learned of Elena's consistently excellent work record, her punctuality, her discretion. He found out she had listed Fluent in German and French on her initial application form 5 years ago, a detail overlooked and forgotten, buried under the assumption that her role wouldn't require such skills. He relayed this to Mr. Harrison, who listened impassively, merely nodding, his expression giving nothing away. Harrison was piecing together a puzzle. A woman of obvious intelligence and linguistic talent working a low-wage, physically demanding job. There was a story there, a discrepancy that piqued his interest beyond mere curiosity. It hinted at resilience, perhaps untapped potential, qualities he valued. He wasn't a sentimental man, but he was a pragmatist who recognized value where he saw it, often in the most unexpected places. For Elena, the subtle shift in Mr. Harrison's awareness was a quiet undercurrent to her days, a silent question mark hanging in the air. She continued her work with her usual diligence, but a part of her was waiting, though she wasn't sure for what. The brief moment of connection, of being truly seen, had stirred something within her, a fragile hope she dared not name. The summons, as Elena later thought of it, came on Thursday afternoon. She was in the staff break room, hastily eating a sandwich during her short lunch break, when Mr. Albright approached her, a slightly nervous energy about him. "Elena," he said, "Mr. Harrison would like to see you." In his suite, Elena's heart leaped. Her sandwich remained uneaten. "Me, sir? Are you sure?" Albright nodded. "Yes. Now, if you're free." Free? She was on her lunch break, but the implication was clear. This wasn't a request one refused. A wave of apprehension washed over her. What could a man like Mr. Harrison possibly want with her? Had she done something wrong after all? Was her brief moment in the linguistic spotlight about to have unforeseen consequences? She smoothed down her uniform, her palms suddenly damp. "Of course, sir." Following Mr. Albright to the penthouse elevator, her mind raced. The ride up was silent, each floor number lighting up like a step towards an unknown fate. The penthouse suite was an expanse of understated luxury, with floor-to-ceiling windows offering a breathtaking panorama of the city. Mr. Harrison was standing by one of these windows, looking out, much like he had when he'd spoken to Albright about her. He turned as they entered, his expression unreadable. "Thank you, Albright. You may leave us." Mr. Albright gave a small bow and retreated, closing the door softly behind him, leaving Elena alone with the millionaire. An awkward silence hung in the air for a moment. "Miss Petrova," Harrison said, his voice calm and even. "Please have a seat." He gestured towards an elegant armchair. Elena sat gingerly on the edge, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. "Mr. Harrison," she murmured, unsure what to expect. He regarded her for a long moment, his gaze analytical. "Your German is exceptional. Not just fluent, but nuanced. Where did you acquire such proficiency?" Elena swallowed. I studied it, sir. For many years. In school and on my own." "On your own?" "Yes, sir. I enjoy languages. I also speak French and some Spanish and Italian." Harrison raised a subtle eyebrow. "Indeed, that's quite a collection." He paused, then switched seamlessly into German. "Und warum arbeiten Sie dann hier als Reinigungskraft, wenn Sie über solche Talente verfügen? And why then do you work here as a cleaner, if you possess such talents?" Elena, startled by the directness and the shift in language, found herself relaxing fractionally. Responding in German felt more natural in this context, less like an interrogation. "Das Leben hat manchmal andere Pläne für uns, Herr Harrison. Es gab Umstände, familiäre Verpflichtungen." "Life sometimes has other plans for us, Mr. Harrison. There were circumstances, family obligations." Her German was as fluid and unhesitated as it had been on the phone. Harrison listened intently, his expression unchanged, but a flicker of something, respect, perhaps, touched his eyes. He then posed a complex question about a recent German political development, a topic far removed from hotel cleaning. Elena, drawing on her podcast listening, offered a thoughtful, well-reasoned response, demonstrating not just linguistic skill, but also an informed understanding. He switched back to English. "You are clearly a woman of considerable intellect, Miss Petrova." Elena felt a faint blush rise to her cheeks. "Thank you, sir." He didn't offer praise easily. "I have a small matter I'm dealing with," Harrison continued, moving towards his desk. He picked up a document, a single sheet of paper covered in dense German text. "This is a preliminary proposal from a potential partner in Hamburg. My usual translation service is slow, and I need a quick, accurate understanding of the key points before a call later today. Would you be willing to look at it?" Elena's eyes widened slightly. This was unexpected. "Sir, I'm not a professional translator. I'm aware of your current profession, Miss Petrova," he said, a hint of dryness in his tone. "I'm asking if you're capable. Consider it an informal assessment, if you will." He held out the paper. Elena hesitated for only a second before taking it. The text was indeed complex, full of business jargon and legalistic phrasing. But as she began to read, the familiar rhythm of the language, the intellectual challenge, engaged her. She sat a little straighter, her focus narrowing. After a few minutes of silent reading, she looked up. "I can summarize the main points for you now, sir, if you wish, and perhaps highlight any potentially problematic clauses I see from a linguistic perspective." Harrison nodded, a slight, almost imperceptible smile touching his lips. "Proceed." For the next 10 minutes, Elena talked him through the document, not just translating, but offering insights into tone and implication that a purely literal translation might have missed. She pointed out a subtly ambiguous phrase that could be misinterpreted. Harrison listened without interruption, asking a sharp, pertinent question now and then, which Elena answered with clarity and confidence. When she finished, he simply said, "Impressive. More than impressive, actually." He took the paper back. "Thank you, Miss Petrova. That will be all for now." Elena stood, a little dazed. "Was that it?" "You've given me something to consider," he added, his gaze thoughtful. "You may return to your duties." Elena nodded, murmured a "thank you, sir," and left the suite, her mind reeling. The interaction had been intense, unexpected and strangely exhilarating. She had been tested, and she felt she hadn't failed. As she walked back to the staff areas, the scent of lemon polish and the sight of her cleaning cart seemed almost surreal. Mr. Harrison's final words, "You've given me something to consider," echoed in her mind, a fragile seed of possibility planted in the barren ground of her routine. He hadn't offered anything, not really. But for the first time in a long time, Elena felt a stirring of anticipation, a sense that the carefully ordered, predictable path of her life might be about to encounter an unexpected fork. The rest of Elena's shift passed in a haze of suppressed excitement and nervous energy. The brief encounter in Mr. Harrison's suite, the intellectual challenge of the German document, felt like a glimpse into a world she had only ever observed from the periphery. She found herself replaying the conversation, analyzing Mr. Harrison's expressions, trying to decipher the meaning behind his enigmatic final words. He was a man who chose his words carefully. Something to consider was not a casual dismissal. The next morning, Mr. Harrison requested that Elena be assigned to manage the service in his suite for the duration of his stay, a subtle but significant deviation from normal hotel procedure. This meant she was responsible for ensuring his rooms were perfect, his requests handled promptly, essentially acting as a personal point of contact within the housekeeping department for him. While still performing cleaning duties, it brought her into more frequent, albeit brief, contact with him. He remained courteous, professional, his demeanor unchanged. Yet there was an undercurrent of acknowledgement now, a recognition that went beyond her uniform. During one such interaction, as she was refreshing the flowers in his sitting room, he was on a video call, speaking rapid-fire English with an American counterpart. The call ended, and he turned to her, a slight frown on his face. "Miss Petrova," he said, "a quick question, if you have a moment. My American associates are planning a marketing campaign for the German market. They've proposed a slogan." He recited a short, catchy English phrase. "They believe it translates well. What are your thoughts from a German cultural perspective?" Elena was a coincidence. The slogan was clever in English, but she immediately saw how it might be misconstrued or simply fall flat in German. "Sir," she began thoughtfully. While the literal translation is straightforward, the implied meaning might not resonate positively. In German, it could come across as slightly arrogant or perhaps even a bit nonsensical. The cultural context for humor and directness is different. She then offered an alternative approach, not a direct translation, but a way to convey the intent of the slogan in a manner more attuned to German sensibilities. Harrison listened intently, tapping a pen against his chin. "That's insightful. Very insightful. The nuance is precisely what they are missing." He made a note. "Thank you. You potentially saved us an embarrassing misstep." He didn't elaborate further, but the incident was another small test, another opportunity for Elena to demonstrate value beyond her designated role. These small interactions, however, did not go unnoticed by some of her colleagues. Whispers began to circulate in the staff corridors. Why was Elena Petrova suddenly getting special attention from the hotel's most important guest? Was she angling for something? A few sidelong glances, a subtle coolness from some of her coworkers, began to manifest. Mrs. Davies, her immediate supervisor, a woman who prided herself on rigid adherence to protocol, seemed particularly wary. She cornered Elena in the linen closet. "Elena," she said, her voice tight, "I hope you understand that Mr. Harrison is a very important guest. It's crucial that all staff maintain professional boundaries. No one should be seeking undue familiarity." Elena felt a flush of indignation, but kept her voice calm. "Mrs. Davies, I have only ever responded to Mr. Harrison's direct requests. I assure you, my conduct has been entirely professional." Mrs. Davies sniffed. "Just see that it remains so." The subtle antagonism was another layer of pressure for Elena. She was not one to seek conflict, and the idea of being the subject of gossip was deeply uncomfortable. Her own internal doubts also began to surface more insistently. Was she getting her hopes up for nothing? Mr. Harrison was a powerful, busy man. Perhaps these were just fleeting moments of intellectual curiosity for him, a temporary diversion. Could she truly imagine a life different from the one she knew? The fear of disappointment, of daring to hope only to be let down, was a familiar shadow from her past. She had learned to be pragmatic, to keep her expectations tethered to reality. Yet, each small validation from Mr. Harrison chipped away at that pragmatism, allowing a fragile shoot of aspiration to grow. The weight of her mother's ongoing medical needs also pressed upon her. Any change would have to provide not just personal fulfillment, but also the financial stability she desperately needed. The stakes were high, not just for her pride, but for her family's well-being. One evening, a minor crisis occurred. A new associate of Mr. Harrison's, a notoriously difficult negotiator from France, arrived unexpectedly. He was agitated about a perceived slight in his travel arrangements and was refusing to engage with the hotel staff, his complaints delivered in rapid, idiomatic French. The duty manager was floundering. Mr. Harrison, informed of the situation, was clearly irritated. Remembering Elena, he sent for her. Flustered but composed, Elena entered the fray. She listened patiently to the Frenchman's torrent of grievances, her calm demeanor and flawless French slowly defusing his anger. She didn't just translate, she empathized, acknowledged his frustration, and then, with quiet authority, proposed a series of practical solutions. Within 20 minutes, the crisis was averted. The Frenchman, mollified and impressed, was settled. Mr. Harrison observed the entire exchange from the doorway, his arms crossed, his expression thoughtful. Later, he simply said to Elena, "You handle pressure well, Miss Petrova." Very well indeed. This incident, more public than their private conversations, further solidified his assessment of her capabilities. It also silenced some of the staff whispers, replacing them with a grudging respect. Elena, however, felt the increasing weight of expectation. Each success raised the bar, both internally and externally. The path ahead, if there was one, was becoming clearer, but also more daunting. The turning point arrived a week after the first phone call. Mr. Harrison was due to depart the following day. Elena, performing her final checks in his suite, felt a pang of melancholy. The brief period of heightened interaction, of feeling seen and valued for her intellect, was likely coming to an end. She would return to her anonymity, the scent of Gerda in her locker, her only reminder of a different possibility. As she was about to leave, Mr. Harrison entered the suite, his briefcase in hand. "Miss Petrova, a moment of your time before I get caught up in departure arrangements." Elena turned, her heart quickening. "Sir." He gestured for her to sit, then took the opposite armchair, a rare move that signaled a more formal conversation. "Over the past week," he began, his gaze direct and serious, "I've had the opportunity to observe your skills and your character. Your linguistic abilities are, frankly, exceptional. But more than that, you possess a keen intellect, composure under pressure, and a remarkable degree of cultural sensitivity." Elena listened, her breath held. "I am not a man who makes impulsive decisions," he continued. "I have a significant international business portfolio. Communication, precise and nuanced, is paramount. Frankly, we often struggle with the subtleties that can make or break a deal, despite employing expensive translation services and consultants." He paused, his eyes holding hers. "I am in the process of establishing a small, specialized in-house liaison team to handle high-level intercultural communications, direct client relations with key foreign partners, and to provide strategic cultural insights. It's a new initiative, one that requires a unique blend of talents." Elena's mind was racing. She could barely dare to hope where this was leading. "Miss Petrova," he said, his voice clear and devoid of embellishment, "I would like to offer you a position on this team, specifically as a senior intercultural liaison. The role would involve direct support to my executive office, handling sensitive communications, preparing briefings, and potentially accompanying me or other senior executives on international engagements." He named a salary that made Elena gasp internally. It was more than triple her current earnings. He outlined her responsibilities, demanding, yes, but also incredibly stimulating, a world away from mops and cleaning carts. The potential for growth, he added, was significant. Elena was stunned into silence for a long moment. Tears pricked at her eyes, but she fought them back. This was beyond anything she could have imagined. Gratitude, shock, and a sudden, overwhelming wave of fear and excitement washed over her. "Mr. Harrison, I don't know what to say," she stammered, her carefully constructed composure momentarily deserting her. "It's a significant step, I understand," he acknowledged, "and a departure from your current path. There would be a steep learning curve in terms of corporate environment, but I have no doubt about your capacity to adapt and excel. Your inherent skills are what I'm interested in." Elena thought of her mother, of the constant worry about medical bills. She thought of the years of quiet study, the passion for languages that had been her private refuge. She thought of the stifling anonymity of her current life. This offer wasn't just a job. It was a lifeline, a validation, a chance to become the person she had always known she could be, if only circumstance hadn't intervened. But the fear was real too. The corporate world was alien to her. Could she navigate its complexities? Could she truly meet the expectations of a man like Alastair Harrison, day in and day out? May I have a little time to consider, sir?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. "Of course," Harrison replied, his tone softening slightly. "Take until tomorrow morning. But know this, Miss Petrova, this offer is not made lightly. I believe you have a great deal to contribute." Elena nodded, her mind a whirlwind. She thanked him, her voice thick with emotion, and left the sweet feeling as though the ground beneath her feet had shifted. The walk back through the opulent hotel corridors was a blur. The world looked different, sharper, imbued with a terrifying and exhilarating potential. That night, she barely slept. She spoke to her mother. Despite her frailty, listened with surprising clarity and encouraged her with a fierce maternal pride. "This is your chance, Elena," she'd whispered, her hand gripping Elena's tightly. "You were made for more than scrubbing floors." Elena weighed the risks and the rewards. The security of the known versus the terrifying uncertainty of the new. But deep down, a decision was already forming. The years of suppressed ambition, the quiet yearning for her talents to be recognized and utilized, coalesced into a powerful imperative. The next morning, with a resolve that surprised even herself, Elena sought out Mr. Harrison before his departure. She found him in the hotel restaurant, having a final coffee. "Mr. Harrison," she said, approaching his table. He looked up, an expectant look in his eyes. "Miss Petrova, I've considered your offer, sir," she said, her voice clear and steady, though her heart pounded. "And I would be honored to accept." A rare, genuine smile touched Alastair Harrison's lips. "Excellent, Elena. I had a feeling you would. Welcome aboard." It felt, in that moment, as if a door she hadn't even realized was closed had just been flung wide open, revealing a path she was finally ready to walk. The transition from the hushed, regimented world of hotel housekeeping to the dynamic, high-stakes environment of Alastair Harrison's corporate headquarters was as jarring as it was exhilarating. Elena's first day at Harrison Global Ventures felt like stepping onto a different planet. The sleek, minimalist office, the quiet hum of computers, the crisp attire of her new colleagues. It was a universe away from bleach-scented linen closets and the rhythmic squeak of a mop bucket. Her new office, though modest, had a window with a view and a nameplate that read, "Elena Petrova, Senior Intercultural Liaison." Just seeing her name, so formally presented, sent a thrill of both pride and trepidation through her. The initial weeks were a whirlwind of introductions, orientations, and an almost overwhelming influx of new information. Corporate jargon, internal protocols, complex software systems. It was a steep learning curve, just as Mr. Harrison had predicted. There were moments of profound self-doubt, times when she felt like an imposter, a cleaner masquerading in a business suit. Some of her new colleagues were welcoming and helpful, intrigued by her unusual path to the company. Others were more reserved, their curiosity tinged with a subtle skepticism. She overheard a whispered comment in the hallway once. "Harrison hired her out of a hotel? Must be some story there. And it stung, a reminder of the preconceived notions she would have to overcome. Yet, Elena applied the same diligence and meticulous attention to detail that had characterized her work at the Excelsior. She arrived early, stayed late, absorbed information like a sponge, and asked intelligent questions. Her linguistic skills, of course, were immediately apparent. Within her first week, she was asked to review a series of complex legal agreements with a Japanese firm. And while she didn't speak Japanese, her understanding of contractual language and her ability to spot potential ambiguities in the English versions impressed the legal team. Mr. Harrison, true to his word, provided initial guidance, but largely allowed her to find her own footing. He'd check in periodically, not to micromanage, but to offer strategic advice or a word of encouragement. Focus on your strengths, Elena, he told her during one such meeting. Your unique perspective is your asset, not a liability. One of her first significant challenges involved a delicate negotiation with a potential Italian partner known for his mercurial temperament and insistence on conducting all critical discussions in his native tongue. Previous attempts by Harrison's team to build rapport had been stilted and unproductive. Elena, drawing on her Italian, stepped in. She didn't just translate, she engaged, using her understanding of Italian business etiquette and cultural nuances to smooth ruffled feathers and build a bridge of understanding. She listened more than she spoke initially, allowing the Italian executive to feel heard and respected. Then, with carefully chosen words, she subtly guided the conversation back to common ground. The tense atmosphere in the room gradually relaxed. By the end of the meeting, a preliminary agreement, which had seemed out of reach just hours before, was tentatively achieved. The executive, patting her arm as he left, declared to Mr. Harrison, "This one, she understands. She has sensibilita." It was a small victory, but a significant one. It earned her nods of respect from colleagues who had witnessed the transformation and a quiet look of approval from Harrison. Slowly, painstakingly, Elena began to carve out her space within Harrison Global Ventures. She learned to navigate the currents of office politics, to voice her opinions with quiet confidence, and to trust her instincts. The work was demanding, the hours often long, but for the first time in years, Elena felt truly alive, her mind stretched and challenged, her talents finally unfurled. She still thought of her days at the Excelsior, not with shame, but with a sense of gratitude for the resilience and humility it had taught her. Those qualities, she realized, were just as valuable in a corporate boardroom as they were in a hotel corridor. Her journey was far from over, but she was no longer just cleaning up after other people's ambitions. She was finally pursuing her own. Several months into her new role, Harrison Global Ventures found itself on the cusp of a landmark acquisition, a highly respected, family-owned engineering firm based in Munich. The deal was strategically vital for Harrison, promising to open up significant new markets in Europe. However, negotiations had hit a snag. The German patriarch, a man named Dietrich, was old school, deeply proud of his company's legacy, and profoundly skeptical of what he perceived as Harrison's aggressive, purely profit-driven American approach. Communication had been strained, handled through layers of lawyers and financial analysts, with cultural misunderstandings exacerbating the tension. Dietrich was threatening to walk away, believing his company's ethos would be lost. Mr. Harrison was frustrated. He knew the strategic value, but the human element was proving to be a formidable barrier. He called an emergency meeting with his core team. "We're losing him," Harrison stated bluntly. "He thinks we're corporate raiders who don't understand the soul of his business. All our carefully crafted financial projections mean nothing if he doesn't trust us." Various solutions were proposed, more generous financial terms, reassurances from legal teams. But Harrison sensed these missed the point. Then, his gaze fell on Elena, who had been listening intently. "Elena," he said, "you've been quiet. What are your thoughts? You understand the German mindset better than anyone in this room." Elena took a breath. This was a critical moment. "Sir," she began, choosing her words carefully, "with all due respect to our legal and financial teams, I believe the issue isn't primarily about numbers or contracts. It's about respect, legacy, and a fear of cultural annihilation. Herr Dietrich has built his life's work. He needs to feel that we understand and value that, not just its balance sheet. And how do we convey that? One of the vice presidents asked, a hint of skepticism in his voice. We need to speak his language, Elena said, not just literally, but culturally. Perhaps a more personal approach is needed, one that acknowledges his heritage and the values his company was built upon, rather than just focusing on future synergies. Harrison leaned forward. Elaborate. What if, Elena proposed, instead of another formal presentation, you, Mr. Harrison, or a small, carefully chosen delegation, were to meet him on his own terms? Perhaps not in a boardroom, but somewhere more informal. And the conversation should be led by someone who can genuinely connect with him, someone who can express our respect for German engineering, craftsmanship, and the Mittelstand tradition he represents. The message needs to be one of partnership, of preserving and enhancing his legacy, not just absorbing it. There was a silence as the team considered her words. It was a departure from their usual hard-nosed negotiation tactics. And who do you suggest leads this cultural charm offensive? The VP asked, still looking doubtful. Mr. Harrison looked directly at Elena. I think we all know who that should be. Elena, I want you to accompany me to Munich. You will be our primary liaison with Herr Dietrich. I'm putting the human dimension of this deal in your hands. The weight of the responsibility was immense, but Elena felt a surge of determination. This was why she was here. This was her chance to make a tangible, critical difference. The trip to Munich was meticulously planned. Elena spent days researching Herr Dietrich, his company's history, his personal interests. She prepared briefing notes for Mr. Harrison, not just on business points, but on cultural etiquette, conversational gambits, and potential sensitivities. When they finally met Herr Dietrich at his company's historic headquarters, a place that felt more like a museum of engineering marvels than a modern factory, the atmosphere was initially cool. Herr Dietrich was polite but distant, his eyes wary. Mr. Harrison, following Elena's counsel, allowed her to take the lead in the initial, informal conversations. Elena spoke to Herr Dietrich in fluent, respectful German. She didn't talk about financial projections or market share. Instead, she spoke of her admiration for German engineering, referencing specific innovations his company had pioneered. She asked him about the early days, about the challenges he had overcome, listening with genuine interest as he shared his stories. She spoke of her own background, subtly conveying her understanding of European traditions and values. Slowly, almost imperceptibly, Herr Dietrich began to unbend. He saw not just a translator, but someone who understood his world, who respected his life's work. He began to ask her questions, to engage in a genuine dialogue. Mr. Harrison, for the most part, listened, observing the interaction with growing admiration. Over the next 2 days, through a series of both formal and informal meetings, Elena carefully bridged the gap between the two business titans. She navigated complex discussions, translating not just words but intent, defusing potential misunderstandings with tact and grace. She highlighted areas of shared values and mutual respect. The pivotal moment came during a tour of the original workshop, now preserved as a company museum. Herr Dietrich paused before an old, lovingly maintained lathe, the first machine his father had purchased. His voice thick with emotion, he spoke of the pride and dedication that had built the company. Elena, sensing the moment, turned to Mr. Harrison and translated not just his words, but the profound emotion behind them. Then, in German, she said to Herr Dietrich, Mr. Harrison understands that this is more than a company. It is a legacy, and his intention is not to erase that legacy, but to help it grow and flourish on a global stage, bringing this remarkable German craftsmanship to even more people. Herr Dietrich looked from Elena to Harrison, his gaze searching. Harrison met his look directly and nodded. Das ist wahr, Harrison said, using one of the few German phrases Elena had coached him on. It is true. That evening, Herr Dietrich agreed to the acquisition. He shook Harrison's hand firmly, then turned to Elena. Frau Petrova, he said, a rare smile on his face. You have a remarkable gift. You do not just speak German. You understand its heart. Without you, this would not have happened. Back on the plane to New York, Mr. Harrison raised a glass of champagne to Elena. You didn't just save the deal, Elena, he said, his voice filled with genuine admiration. You taught us all a lesson in how true international business should be conducted. You were magnificent. Elena simply smiled, a quiet sense of accomplishment warming her. The little girl who had dreamed in foreign languages while scrubbing floors had just helped broker a multi-million-dollar international deal. Her journey had been improbable, but her arrival felt undeniably right. The success of the Munich acquisition cemented Elena's reputation within Harrison Global Ventures. She was no longer seen as the surprising hire from the hotel, but as an invaluable asset, a woman whose quiet intelligence and profound cultural understanding were as critical to the company's success as any financial wizardry. Mr. Harrison increasingly relied on her counsel, not just for linguistic matters, but for broader strategic insights on international relations. Her office became a quiet hub of intercultural problem-solving. Colleagues who had once been skeptical now sought her advice before engaging with foreign clients or embarking on overseas assignments. She handled these interactions with grace and humility, always willing to share her knowledge, never forgetting the feeling of being an outsider herself. She spearheaded the development of a comprehensive cross-cultural training program for the company's employees, drawing on her own experiences and insights to help others navigate the complexities of global business with greater sensitivity and effectiveness. It wasn't just about teaching language basics or lists of cultural do's and don'ts. It was about fostering genuine understanding and empathy. Elena also made a point of discreetly mentoring junior staff, particularly those from diverse backgrounds who might be struggling to find their voice in the corporate world. She remembered the sting of being overlooked, the frustration of untapped potential, and she was determined to help others avoid those pitfalls if she could. She never lauded her own success or her close working relationship with Mr. Harrison. If anything, her experiences had deepened her empathy. She understood that talent could be hidden in the most unexpected places, often masked by circumstance or societal prejudice. Her own story was a testament to that. One afternoon, Mr. Harrison called her into his office. He was looking at an architectural rendering of a new wing for their corporate headquarters. We're expanding, Elena, he said, and we're dedicating a significant portion of this new space to an international relations and cultural exchange center. It will house your team, our training programs, and serve as a hub for fostering better global understanding within our operations and beyond. He paused, then added, I'd like you to lead its design and development. And once it's established, you will be its director. Elena was momentarily speechless. Director. It was a title, a responsibility she could never have fathomed just a few years prior. Mr. Harrison, she said, her voice filled with emotion, I am deeply honored. He smiled. You've earned it, Elena. You've shown us that true global success isn't just about conquering markets. It's about connecting with people. You've changed the way this company thinks, the way we operate. You brought a soul to our global ambitions. Elena thought back to that Tuesday morning in the Hotel Excelsior lobby, the moment she had stepped forward to answer a phone call. It was a small act of courage, a simple offer to help, born from years of quiet passion. She had no idea, then, that it would be the first step on such an extraordinary journey. Her life was a testament to the fact that one's current circumstances do not define one's potential. Talent, intelligence, and worth are not dictated by a uniform or a job title. They reside within, waiting for an opportunity, for someone willing to look beyond the surface. And sometimes, all it takes is one person, one moment of being truly seen to unlock a destiny. As Elena looked out of Mr. Harrison's office window at the sprawling city below, she knew her work was far from over. There were more bridges to build, more misunderstandings to unravel, more hidden talents in the world waiting to be discovered. And she, Elena Petrova, once the invisible hotel cleaner, was now in a position to help illuminate them. Her story wasn't just about personal triumph. It was a reminder to us all. Never underestimate the person quietly doing their job in the background. Never assume you know the depths of someone's capabilities based on their current station. For brilliance can be found in the most unexpected of guises, and the most profound changes often begin with the courage to speak up, to share a hidden gift, and with the wisdom of another to truly listen. If you've ever felt overlooked, if your talents have ever been hidden by circumstance, remember Elena. Your moment can come. Be ready to answer the call.